our fifth hour on content or social media, and I'm going to welcome Joe Pulizzi back. And a quick intro for Joe. Joe Pulizzi, he's the founder of Junta 42 and the Content Marketing Institute. He's going to talk today about the opportunities for publishers in offering custom publishing and content marketing services. And Joe ran Peyton Media's custom publishing division for 7 years, currently serves as chair of American Business Media's Custom Media Council, and also served for 4 years on the board of the Custom Content Council. So Joe obviously knows his stuff. So Joe, why don't you take it away, and everybody, let's all pay attention.
Great. Thanks again. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So, the last 4 presentations, we've talked a lot about social media, and don't get me wrong, we'll talk a little bit about social media in this one as well. But the question I get from most publishers when I'm out doing speeches at the Folio conference or Publishing Executive or whatever would be, how do you get started in content marketing? And if you're already doing content marketing or custom publishing services, what are the best practices? What should we look forward to? So I've actually done workshops for this that have been a day long. Obviously, we have an hour, and I'd like to do this at about 40 to 45 minutes so we can get to some questions. But we'll get to some of the bigger, higher-level questions, give you some examples, run through a few things that I think are really important to focus on when you're a publisher getting involved in custom publishing, and then we'll go from there. Just a quick thing about me. So this is my one slide where I tell you what I am, who I'm working with, and what I'm up to these days, and then the rest of it will be educational. So on Twitter, my handle is @JuntaJoe. I guess it talks a lot about social media, which I do talk a lot about social media. I give speeches all over the country and Europe about social media, but really my passion is in the content marketing space, and what we're going to be talking about today is really exciting to me because this is what I've been living in and working in the last decade plus. So in addition to all the workshops and speeches and all that good stuff, I create a lot of companies in the space. So Junta 42 is one of those companies. It's basically like the eHarmony for custom publishing. So we're a lead generation tool for publishers, custom publishers that want to get projects in custom publishing. So we match up marketers' needs with expert content vendors. Along with that, we've launched the Content Marketing Institute. We'll be send out some more information on this in the next couple of weeks about the membership program. It'll be a members-only program in the Content Marketing Institute. But right now we do a blog post a day all about content marketing. So if you're interested, just go to contentmarketinginstitute.com and you can learn the best of what's going on in content marketing. I'll talk a little bit about Social Track later as one of the examples. And then Foundry, it might be of interest. If you're really interested in going this direction in content marketing, Tail Foundry is a partnership between Junta 42 and Nextbook Media, where we help publishers actually deliver marketing services to their customers. So if you like a lot of this stuff but may not have the resources to do all this, contact me, let me know, and I can tell you about what Tail Foundry is doing. We're working with a lot of publishers right now in the space on helping them launch marketing services programs. And then there you see the book, Get Content, Get Customers, which is known in a lot of circles as sort of the handbook for content marketing. So if you want to know more about the space and what it's all about, pick up where you can. You can get on Amazon. It's probably the cheapest price available. So there you go. There's my 1 minute on me, and then we'll get into how we can help you the rest of this point. When we're talking about content marketing, when I say content marketing, traditionally the term has been custom publishing. Content marketing is sort of the modernized phrase for custom publishing field, and it's the idea that all of us are publishers today. You on the phone today are publishers. You've been doing this for however long you've been doing it, but what we need to realize is that marketers today are publishers. They need to create their own newsletters, videos, social media programs, webinars, webcasts, microsites, and that's all publishing. How this came about is what I call this perfect storm of content. There's 3 things that really got us to this point. The idea that of search engine optimization is the first thing, where marketers said, oh man, I need to get on the left side of Google. I need to be found for organic searches. And to do that, they need really good, compelling content that people link to. So that's one. Second thing is lead generation. For any of your customers' lead generation activities, they need valuable, compelling, relevant content for people to sign up to so they can get the leads, right? That's lead generation. They need content to do that. The third and the most powerful, and the one we hear about all the time now, is the idea of social media. when people were just getting in and looking at the eye candy of things like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, what they didn't initially realize is, oh, we need really compelling, relevant, consistent content to give our media program some legs and make it workable inside our marketing program. You get more and more brands that are starting to talk about that, so they're saying, well, shoot, we need to actually have a content strategy first before we have a social media strategy. So when I talk about the perfect storm of content, it's these three things working together, and you're seeing this boom in the industry called content marketing. And you see my little picture of money. So this is where all the money's going. More than 50% of the companies you're talking to are increasing their budgets in content marketing right now. Depending on which research study, and I'll show you a couple slides in a second, but between 25 and 35% of the budgets of the people that you're going to talk to goes to content marketing initiatives in some way, shape, or form. So just keep that in your head. You're thinking everyone you're calling on is spending roughly a quarter of their budget on what we're going to be talking about today. So that's why I think there's an opportunity where you can take your marketing services program to the next level or actually create a marketing services program. By the way, questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and send them out, and David's going to handle those at the end, and we'll take those out because I know I won't get to everything. And we can follow up with this in the Q&A. So just looking at this is a B2B specific study, and I know some of you on the call are consumer side, but if you look across consumer side or B2B side, basically 9 out of 10 of your customers are using content marketing, according to this study, 88%. So basically everybody, every one of your customers is using content marketing in one way, shape, or form. Here's the budgetary slides I talked about. So according to the study we just did with Marketing Profs, American Business Media, and the Business Marketing Association, this is to 1,000 marketers, by the way, we on average 25.5% of their budget goes to content marketing. And this is across the board, large, medium, and small size companies. So in some cases, people don't even know how big this industry is. This is a big billion-dollar industry that we're just starting to get our arms around and see the opportunities as publishers. Over the next 12 months, 51% are going to be increasing. So basically, 96% of the people that you're talking to are either keeping their budgets consistent for content marketing or they're increasing their budget. So a lot of money is going into this area. And we call this the fight for content, where you have not only yourself as a publisher, but all other marketing service providers in your industry are really fighting it out for all this money. And I want to kind of go into some detail because it's interesting. If you go this direction, you're going to be getting into some competitive realms that you may not have in before. Okay, it seems like some people are having some trouble hearing me, so let me see if I can help with that. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I will try to do a better job speaking louder here. So on the fight for content, you look at content as the centerpiece here, and you look at all the different service providers, look at custom publishers. I mean, obviously they're the original content producers, so they're very ingrained in the industry. But then if you look at advertising agencies that are trying to get their hands on content, then you have traditional media providers that are creating content marketing services units that want to get into it. Public relations, those people think that they are the ones that own content and they tell the stories, so they own this industry. Direct marketers are starting to get involved in it. Search engine optimization companies, obviously, they need consistent content to make their industry go. Social media, we talked about that. Then you have this whole industry called web content strategists that basically look at all the content going on in a corporation, in a complex corporation, and they will figure out how, taxonomies and where the content should go and what tactics to use. So they think that this is their industry. Then you've got interactive services, or people that create websites, because you cannot have a static website anymore. You have to have a lot of content flowing into that site so you get Google's attention. So they think that the content marketing is important as well. So you just look at all the people that you're fighting with over this industry, and it's big. So just something to keep in mind if you go this direction. There is a lot of competition because you got everybody looking at the money, especially look at advertising agencies. The big branding programs, they're going away. Where are they going? They're going to these types of content marketing programs that are integrated with total marketing strategies. Just a little caveat here. before you move forward, just know that it's not easy. It's a difficult industry to get into. I worked in it at Penton Media, as David said, for 7 years, working as a division, custom media division within a large publisher, and it's not easy. The margins are different, and I want to talk about that a little bit so you can get your hands around what maybe you're getting into. You have unpredictable revenue streams, whereas say you do a monthly magazine where you have advertising flowing into that magazine. You know every month, you know when to send out your bills. You know that you can collect on that. You know you're doing a magazine. You can set your timetables with your internal staff. You can't do that with custom. If you, let's say you do a quarterly magazine with your client, they want to move the magazine from, let's say, March to April or March to May, or they say we don't want to do 4-time anymore, we want to do 3-time. Well, I don't care how good your agreement is, you're probably going to have to just be dictated by what the customer's needs are. And that's the way it is, and that's the services industry. So it's very unpredictable sometimes when it comes down to the streams of revenue. You can set multiple year agreements, of course, but how those hit and which month they hit are very unpredictable. Type processes, I mean, really what you're saying is if you're creating a marketing services group, you're creating a mini agency within your publishing operation. So that works a little bit different. I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. Possibly lower margin business. And I'll talk about the margins in this in a second, but you have to realize, and I've talked with a lot of publishers for a lot of years about marketing services operations, and they say, shoot, if I sell another ad, that's about 80% profitability that I can add because I'm just adding, let's say, postage and paper to that. Well, yes, it's true. When you get to a certain point, it is highly profitable, but up to that point, it's not as profitable as that. So it's just a different kind of mentality you have to get used to when you look to the margins. And then talked about the ultra competitive. You're not just competing with the second and third or fourth book in your field, if you even have 4 books in your field anymore. You are competing with literally everybody in that industry and outside that industry. So you have to think about it in a different way and the values that you bring to the table, and we'll discuss those in a second as well. Just talk about margins really quick. So in general, let's say looking at let's say you're looking at a print custom magazine. So if you're looking at a print custom magazine model from a margin standpoint, you may be looking at margins anywhere between 30 and 45% for gross margins on a project such as that. If you look at total margins for a custom media services department, you may be looking at the 30 to 40% range, depending on your mix of print and digital. Digital is usually higher; it's usually 50% plus. If you are leveraging a lot of your publishing assets and doing webinars, I know a lot of people that do webinars at 70+%, even higher at some cases. So higher from that standpoint, lower from the print standpoint, just because you have more costs. So it's just something to keep in mind from a margin standpoint. At the end of the day, when you take all the costs out, you take all the overhead out, you should be between 15 and 20% net margins. If you're doing less than 15%, you're probably really not making a heck of a lot of money. You're probably just breaking even. So our goal was to at least go 15 to 20% net. If you're over 20% net, you're doing pretty well. So just to give you an idea of the margin standpoint there. So there's definitely an opportunity here for money to go after it because your customers are spending in this area. So let's talk about some of the things that you can do and look at if you're going to go into this area. I want to show you this because I think it's really important. If those of you are familiar with Vance Publishing, they're a large B2B publisher with many titles. They put this out, which I thought was really interesting, which is a difference between Vance Publishing model and the marketing solutions model. And it's just interesting how they take a look at it and might help you if you're looking at this area. So if you look at the revenue model, so Vance Publishing revenue model is advertising based, advertising and sponsorship. The marketing solutions model is project based, so they bill per project. So what do they offer? So as a traditional publisher, what do you offer? Advertisements in magazines or newspapers, ad webs, sponsorship on trade shows, whatever, radio in this case, whatever. So generally it's usually magazines, websites, and trade shows that you offer sponsorship opportunities and so that they get access to those people. So on the project management side, it's much different because you're offering you're a consultant. You are definitely a marketing consultant, and you are going to help them consult with them on their specific project and then how to execute that project. Remember, on the advertising side too, you own that asset. On the marketing side, you don't own that asset for the most part. You are doing work for hire. So what are you doing? You're doing a website development, you're doing email marketing, search engine, mobile, social media, whatever the case is, and we're going to talk about a lot of those models in a second. No slide displaying. Okay. There's a slide on this one, Steve? I'm just getting a note that Steve can't see the slide on here. All right. Well, there's a pretty slide on here. Okay. Well, we'll have to send this out separately, Steve, because there's a really pretty slide in here that I have it showing, and I'm seeing it on my screen. So I will make sure to send this out separately, and when we do this whole thing, David, we might give this out because it's showing fine on my screen. But one more thing I want to show you different on resources standpoints. I'm sorry you can't see this slide, so I'll make sure I get this out to you. But when you look at the differences in what you offer from advertising-based to project management-based, also look at the staff resources. On the side for your advertising base, you're looking at reporters and editors and advertising sales. On the resources that you have on the marketing solutions side, you have project managers, you have web experts, you have SEO experts, you have web designers, so you have a lot of different types of skill bases. So just something to keep in mind. And let's go to another slide to see if we can make sure we see this one. Can you see this one okay, Steve? Just make sure you let me know if this one comes through. Okay, this one's fine. You look at the skill base that's set up for content marketing services and what you need done. Just take a look, and this is where you have to pick your poison. And I'm going to talk about this more in a second and get you thinking about some questions. But if you look at what skills you bring to the table, what are you going to offer to your customers when it comes to marketing services? In the past, if you looked at a custom publishing department within a traditional publisher, you were basically offering custom magazines and custom newsletters. Well, today it's a lot different. So you have to figure out where you're going to pick your expertise level. So is it you're going to be with content strategy and help integrate that with their total marketing program? Are you in analytics and measuring, which you have to at some point, depending on what products you look at? Are you looking at listening and social media tools, mobile, social media and blogs, different types of shareable and gated content, video, webinars, webcasts? I mean, I'm not going to go into all these, but just there's a lot of different skill sets involved, whereas they've really evolved from the last 5 years to what they were. So just keep in mind, where are your specific expertise areas? What can you do inside your company, and what can you do outside? And let's kind of talk a little bit more about this in general, about some marketing services tips that you can look at. And I want to specifically get you to start asking you some questions about how you feel you can leverage this in your own company. So be very picky. Focus on your niche. I know a lot of publishers that get into marketing services and say, oh, we can go to anybody. Now we can offer these services to, let's say that you're in healthcare. Oh, we can offer it to financial. Yes, you can. And there are also a lot of players that have expertise in that area. So what makes you so special is because you understand the industry better than anyone else. So really say focused on your niche market, so that you can see that you are the experts in that niche market, and you're coming to the table with expert marketing solutions in that mix, in that market. So ask yourself what you can be the best in. You can't be the best in a certain market. You may want to think twice about getting into that area for marketing services, because there'll be a lot of competition in that area. If you want an example of somebody that's doing this, look at IDG, International Data Group's a strategic communication group that does this type of marketing services, and they really focus on big IT partners to work with. So if you're just type in IDG marketing services into Google, and you'll find out kind of what they do. Really focus on IT. They don't go outside of big IT companies. So from your standpoint, if you're in food, you want to focus on the larger food groups. So just focus on which one that you feel that you can be the best in. Obviously, IDG and like a Ziff Davis marketing services, they probably feel they can be the best when it comes to servicing large IT companies. This is what you're going to do. Do you do it all, or do you focus on a certain area? I think it's a fallacy that people think they have to do everything. I don't think you do. I think there's some things that you can do well and some things that you can get partnerships for other people to help you do. So just think about what you can. Again, what's the question? What can you be the best at? If you can't be the best at certain things and you offer second-tier products, I don't think that's good enough. So really focus on what types of offerings that you can really be the best at. Now, if you look at, Steve just confirmed to make sure that you can see this slide. So I want to make sure I don't talk about it forever and you can't see this this slide here. All right, very good. So look at this slide here. This is again from our research study. Thank you, Steve. From our study about the different products and services that marketers are employing as part of their content marketing strategy. So if you look at 79% are using social media as part of their content marketing. Then you have article posting, in-person events, e-newsletters, case studies, blogs, white papers, webcast webinars, print magazines, videos, and all the way down. Then you got mobile and ebooks, which are more emerging fields coming up the top. There's digital magazines at 15%. And also, we talked about this before, content strategy as well you might do for your customers. All these things, are you going to offer all of them? Are you going to offer a portion of them? Do you really focus on a couple key areas? It's not an easy decision. It's very difficult, actually, to figure out. We know that we probably have to offer more than custom print magazines because there's not a lot of those floating around as much anymore. But other things do we really focus on as part of an integrated package that we can bring to the table from a marketing services standpoint? Talk the talk. So how will they know that you are the expert in marketing services in your industry if they don't know? And this is the biggest thing I see with a lot of traditional publishers that have custom media operations. Besides like a landing page and saying that they do things and then giving it to their sales reps, they don't communicate in a lot of ways that they are the expert, that they actually create compelling, relevant communication on their own that educates their customers about this thing. So their customers say, well, these guys are the experts. Most publishers actually aren't great marketers because they focus on their publishing assets as its own marketing, which in a lot of cases it is. But in marketing services, we need something more. So if you think about, again, going back to IDG, they have something called the Knowledge Hub, which is a website, a full-blown website that has education and events and research and all kinds of things, and you see they're active on Twitter and Facebook, and they really educate their customers so that when people go to this site, they say, wow, IGG, they really are the experts in understanding my business. They really do understand how I can leverage social media as part of my business or whatever the case is. So if you're you have to make sure that marketing is a key component of this, whether it's an e-newsletter or whether it's a daily blog or something, so that people say at the end of the day, wow, these guys really know their stuff. They really are experts. So just think about, we have to make sure that we market ourselves. There's another D Custom, which is a part of the marketing services group for D Magazine out in Dallas, launched their own blog. So they're communicating every day and trying to give information to their customers that are going to be helpful, that then positions them as an expert. So just something, again, to think about. If you're going to launch marketing services, you have to walk the talk, or why would I do business with you? It's like a lot of those social media gurus out there will say, oh, shoot, I can go ahead and set up a social media program for you, but then you look and they're not doing much on Twitter or Facebook or blogging, and you wonder how they became a social media guru in the first place. So make sure that you definitely walk the talk when it comes to your marketing. Here's some ideas that I feel you can use, going through some specific core areas that I think are very important when you're looking at launching your custom media programs. So let's go through some specific tactics here. I'm going to go through some of the main ones and then some ideas that you can take, and then I'm going to end the presentation with just some things that I really feel are important from a sales standpoint and a project management standpoint, and then we can take Q&A. So custom magazine, most of you on the call already do magazines. You already understand print. So it's very easy for you then to understand how you can create an effective print magazine for your customers. One caveat I do have to say when it comes to magazines, newsletters, webcasts, or anything you're going to be creating on behalf of your customers. Remember, it's different now. This is not your own asset. This is work for hire that you're creating for your customers. So if you think of a custom magazine, you got to make sure that you have salespeople or project managers that understand how this fits into their total marketing program, because it's much, much different than you don't get a lot of people anymore saying, oh, yeah, I want to do a custom magazine. It's great when that happens, but what they do talk about is they talk about their pain points and their challenges, and a custom magazine may be a good solution for that you can recommend, but you really have to get into the conversation. So at the end of this, I'll be talking about some of those questions. But from a custom magazine standpoint, you're generally talking about 24-plus pages, sometimes 32 plus cover. Most effective is quarterly or more, although you do have some annuals out there. But if they're really looking at this as a customer retention tool, you're looking at something 24 pages or more. A lot of you probably are already doing a lot of this in supplement work. So, and you can also leverage your sales team to sell advertising partnerships, sponsorships. You can work with associations and help do co-branding opportunities. So that just Custom Magazine is sort of the basic marketing services product that we've had for 10 plus years since this has been going on. Then you have newsletters and e-newsletters. So on the newsletter side, of course, you got the print newsletter, which may be anywhere from 8 to 12 pages. A lot less of that going on, although I did just blog today because I think there's a huge opportunity in print because I'm seeing so much less print in the mail, magazines and newsletters. So there is an opportunity, and marketers are starting to talk more about print. So those of you on the call, print is not dead. It's just tougher for publishers, but there's an opportunity for marketers. So you can get into some conversations there. So on the email side, still one of the most popular content marketing initiatives is an email newsletter that you could create for your customers. A lot of marketing companies that I talk to, they are actually helping their customers create blogs, and then they're taking those blogs and they're packaging them up in sort of a repurposed e-newsletter to get those out to other people that aren't getting their blogs. So it's a really, really nice model when you look at the e-newsletter blog integrated mix, that you can get people not on the blog, not on social media, but you can also get the blog and then the integration with social media syndication like Twitter and Facebook, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Books have been hot for the last year to 18 months, and basically you can think of an ebook. There's two kinds of ebooks, right? An ebook is the type of ebook that you'd get on like a Kindle, like a tablet, where you'd read a book in a digital format. The other is like the ebook we're talking about here, which is sort of like a white paper on steroids or a sexy white paper. So if you look at a digital or PDF white paper that's generally 8 to 12 pages or something like that, it's almost like a print newsletter, you would take that and say, no, we're going to create much more visual. We're going to give this a clear look. We're going to do bigger fonts. We're going to put a key design component here, and it's going to be, let's say, 20 to 30 to 40 pages. These are done most often effectively in quarterly standpoint, so if you wanted that consistent business from your customers, you may look at an ebook. There's a really good one if you type in the new rules of PR ebook, which is the picture that I'm showing here. It is a really good example of what can be done with an ebook. And David Meerman Scott did the ebook, and then from that ebook came a book called The New Rules of Marketing and PR, which is also another really good book. So just something to think about that you can help your customers with, because ebooks then can be shared in social media on websites like SlideShare, which is a really good sharing site for ebooks, and PowerPoint presentations. But you can design this. You have all the tools and you have all the staff to do all this already, but it'd be specific to your company, your customers' marketing objectives. Some other lead gen and white papers. If you look at an example of what DM News does, you can do this for your own customers, but you can actually do the creation and the distribution of it. So if you look at what DM News does, we did a white paper program with DM News for our Attract and Retain Customers white paper, and they sent this out. They do a daily white paper that they charge anywhere from, let's say, $500 to $2,000 a day just for the distribution to their list for the white paper of the day. It goes into their third-party opt-in list. But then also what you could do is you could offer the creation of the white paper itself, and I've talked to a number of publishers that are starting to get into this, where they'll say, hey, you know what, let us do your white paper for $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that, and then we'll also distribute it out, and how you package that up with their total marketing program depends. but just another opportunity to actually do some content, help your customers with something like a white paper of the day model. How many of you doing webinars or webcasts? B Magazine does these. From a charge standpoint, I see publishers charge anywhere from, I've seen it really low, like even a couple $1,000s. But in general, you probably want to look at anywhere from $700 to $7,500, and I've seen others charge $40,000, depending on the buying influence of the audience. But a webinar is, kind of what we're on now. It's a 45-minute to an hour session where something educational is going on, and it's brought to them by something. Now, you can either do these yourselves for a marketing purpose, or you can do what B2B did. They invited Crown Peak in. Crown Peak paid for the sponsorship of that. Crown Peak calls me, and I do the educational part of it, and then everybody's happy. B2B gets the revenue. They put on the webinar for their audience. They turnkeyed the whole thing. It was sponsored by Crown Peak, and then I was one of the speakers on that. So just something to think about. Couple servers there at high end, you're looking at On24, Stream 57 from a technology standpoint. A lower end would be a go-to-meeting, go-to-webinar, and then you've got something like your WebEx like you're on today. I won't say it's low end, it's just different. Your industrial strength, and you've got your sort of this is for us, this makes the most sense for what we're trying to do. So a couple things to look at there. Then marketplace or business matching. I think there's an opportunity, if you're looking at marketing services, there's an opportunity for you to say, well, we're already hooking up buyers and sellers, but can we actually be responsible for part of the transaction with that? And I think there's always an opportunity there, and I just want to show you an example. That's what we did at Junta 42, where we said, okay, well, there's all these marketers out there that are looking to launch content marketing projects, and then there's all these expert content custom publishers out there that are looking for business. So why don't we just offer a free service for marketers that we can get the right vendors without them having to source very long or search through Google or whatever, and then we get paid by the sellers of the services, which would be the custom publishers in this case. Now, I'm not promoting this tool. I'm just saying, hey, you could launch something like this in your marketplace, and it could be part of your marketing services division. Education and training, we've done the same thing at Content Marketing Institute, where we're going to focus on, and then actually another really good one to look at would be Peter Hoyt's In-Store Marketing Institute, and he's done the same thing where he's taken his magazines and he's put a educational wrapper around it. And he said, we're going to be sort of the association, and we have publications, but we're also going to offer services for membership. So you could look at this membership model. And the one thing I love about this, people say that paid training is not the place to be. Paid online training and services is going to be bigger than we can even imagine right now, because we're seeing all these really interesting models, like what we're trying to do at Content Marketing Institute, what other people are trying to do. I saw a note from Media Business, I think it was yesterday, that came out that Thomas Publishing launched it in one of their fields. I think it was automation, manufacturing automation. They are launching a model just like this, where they are charging $249 per member to get a services package of things by being a member. So it's something to look at as you're seeing more and more of these publishing companies launch like private associations. And I think there's a model there for you to look at from your marketing services standpoint. So there's a big movement into this social media services category for publishers, and I want to show you a couple models there. We launched this, a tool I told you before called Social Tract, and basically what Social Tract is, it is a vertical blogging service, and we focus on the HVAC contractor market. So what we do is we offer blog posts, we create blog posts for our contractor customers, and then we create a blog for them. We integrate it with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and give them a social media syndication presence, and we help them do something that they couldn't do otherwise. My point is could you do this in your market? And if you're interested in going that direction, you want more information, I'd be happy to talk to you about that, because I think there's a model for most markets in doing actually blogging services. Another model here, there's a sample of the blog that we do for one of our customers, just to give you an idea. So we create educational, relevant posts to our customer's customer, positions our customer as an expert, and then we can give them material so they can get out through Facebook and Twitter and make it look like they really know what they're doing from a social media standpoint. Then we've got this listening research service, which also involves social media, which is really interesting. And I talked to a publisher about this a couple months ago, where I said, well, you're already doing a ton of research on your customers and trying to figure out where the opportunities are from a sales standpoint. Maybe you could create a listening service for them. There's a lot of tools that you could use. There's things like Radian 6, there's Scout Labs, there's FilterBox, there's free tools like search.twitter.com or Google Alerts or TweetDeck for listening on Twitter, all kinds of services. But the point is that you know the market. So you go to your customers and say, you know what, we'll listen online for you and maybe do, I don't know what the cost would be for something like this depending on the time that you spend on it, but a lot of PR companies are focusing on this area. Well, there's no reason why a publisher can't get into this as a marketing service tool as well. And if you look at companies like an IDG, they are launching a service exactly like this and have launched a service like this. So there are publishers out there right now doing this exact thing. Case study here is a company called Due Diligence, and so they created a company that targets the executives within a college athletic department. Say that they will go and they will track the online habits of their athletes, especially their big player athletes that they're under a scholarship for, and make sure that they stay out of trouble. So it's a really interesting model that I don't think anybody would have thought of a couple of years ago. But here you go. You got a company that's making a lot of money. They go after the Ohio States and the Notre Dames and say, hey, somebody needs to monitor this so you can keep them out of trouble, and we'll do that for you. And you could do something like that, the same thing in your market. So just another couple ideas there. A whole bunch of different content marketing tactics. And I can't go through all 42 because we don't have enough time because we're coming up on 40 minutes right now. But if you're interested, type in contentplaybook.com or just type in content marketing playbook into Google. This will come right up. And it's a free book. You don't even have to register anything. You can click on it. There's online HTML or there's a PDF that you can look at. And it will give you 42 different types of content marketing tactics that you can leverage as part of your services offering. So if you're trying to figure out what's going to make the most sense for you, you can look at something like the playbook has to offer. This is just one of the sample pages. So we go through, okay, well, custom print magazine. Here's 2 different case studies on how they did it. What is it? What's it good for? What's it not good for? What are some key points to consider? So we do that for each one of those. So something to keep in mind there if you're interested in launching a marketing services group. A couple more here, and then we're going to end it up. But just I wanted to throw in a couple things sales and one thing on execution. Where do your opportunities exist for content marketing and custom publishing? And it's obviously where the greatest challenges are, right? I mean, where somebody has a complex product and they really need to educate their audience. That's always, I think, where the most opportunities are. But also the relationships are the strongest. This is not something where I think you need to go to shutouts all the time. I think you actually look where your relationships are the strongest. Where do you have relationships with executive marketing management and not just a marketing manager level or not just with the agency level? Complex products, we talked about that. With companies that budget for more than just advertising, and that's most companies, but if you have at least a contact for ancillary marketing investments, or you're talking to the communications person and not just the print advertising person, I think there's a better opportunity. And then if you're looking to test out some of this and you're scared that it might pull away from your advertising, we always used to go after shutouts because that way your traditional sales guys, they don't get upset. Because if you're going after somebody that's not spending anything, then there's no risk in that, and sometimes you can actually sell more advertising by going in and talking marketing services. I still think the best opportunity is where your relationships are currently at, though. And from a standpoint, remember to ask the question. We often go in as publishers talking about our products and services. Here's our BPA statement. Here is here's our special issues, here's what we're talking about next issue, all that kind of stuff. But really, what we want to do is we want to go in and figure out what's keeping them up at night. Like what, and really ask them that question. And what keeps you up at night from a marketing standpoint, from your job? If we can answer to that, we can come up with a custom solution that solves that challenge. I mean, what are their biggest communication challenges? What are your goals and objectives? This is like marketing, sales 101 stuff, but you'd be surprised the number of sales reps that don't know this information and they're just pitching their product. So we've got to get out of that product mentality and really get into, what is keeping our customers up at night? And whatever that is, I think that's the opportunity for custom marketing services programs. Last thing on the process, we want to get, as soon as you can in the sales process, you want to get a project manager involved. So if you're asking me from a resource standpoint, what's the most important person that we need to get involved in this if you're going to create a marketing services group, and it's got to be a project manager of some kind of client services person. Because remember, this is an agency model. This is not something where the salesperson sells it, send it on to production manager can get the ad materials, and then we're going in. And then you've got your editorial side all on the other side. You have a project manager. A project manager functions like a publisher, helps set the budget, helps create the brief for the customer, helps make sure we're on track. And that's going to be the day-to-day person with the client. So we've got to make sure that we get them introduced and there's a fit there as soon as possible. So that project manager is the day-to-day one. And when you've got to figure out who's responsible at the end of the day, it's the project manager. So you've got to make sure you have a good one. Manager responsible for, and I always say the project manager is just like a publisher. Project manager is responsible for not only management, but the editorial, how the design and web development's going. So that person, has to make sure they're talking to the designer, the editor. Is there any, media services manager there, printing issues, distribution? How are we getting this measured? How are we? Who's doing the financials and the budgeting? Who's responsible for the renewal? That's the project manager. You can outsource a lot of the other things. You can outsource editorial, design. You can use in-staff, outside. You can work with a company like a tail foundry. You can do a lot of things. But I really do think you need a project manager, at least a point person, that at the end of the day is responsible. So we've got looks like we've got 15 minutes for Q&A. Just wanted to go back to a couple things. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities today. And, all kinds of things that you could do. You got to make sure that this marketing services makes sense to your business model. And what would that? Are you really focusing on your niche? Is your goal to be the leader in that niche? If it is, then marketing services probably has a significant role. You might be doing a lot of this stuff, but what can you do to take it to the next level? The other thing is focus on your key current customers. I think that's because there's so many opportunities, and I'm sure you're doing a lot of things already. But that's where, you have inroads. They're willing to do a little bit of experimentation with you. The we do everything is not a good strategy. Focus on what you can be the best at, and then understand the difference between marketing service and advertising services. One is you've got that model that you own, advertising, you own the asset. The other one, it's work for hire, and it really is your customers' work. At the end of the day, that's your customer's information, and it means a little bit different than somebody just putting an ad in a publication. Thank you for your time. That was a lot to cover. I hope to you think about some of the key questions and things that you could launch, maybe some products that you're not doing, or maybe a setup from a business model standpoint, the things that you could take a look at and take your business in a new direction. Here's all my contact information. I'm reachable at joe@junta42.com. If you have any specific questions, connect with me through the points below and anything else there. So that's it. David, I don't know if you have any additional questions.
You have a couple questions.
Okay.
I think you're pretty thorough, not as many as in the past, but we have a couple. First of all, nice picture.
Oh, yeah, that's me up in a tree.
Yeah. Anyways, can you help us out with a little bit of price points on how to charge for some of this?
Okay.
Do you there or benchmarks on is it a GM, or is it based on what our ad costs are for our full page ads or half page ads? Or do you have any advice there?
Sure, it's definitely a different model. For the most part, if you are integrating it in with an ad buy, that's a totally different model. Let's just look at the project for what it is. So let's say you're going to do a custom print magazine. It costs on that, hard costs, editorial, internal resources. Remember, you've got to make sure that you're charging time out. So let's say let's say that you charge $50 an hour is what you pay the person with benefits included and everything to oversee as your project manager. Well, that's hard costs. You need to keep track of those costs ongoing for your print magazine. So you might charge $100 an hour for that in there, depending on your markups. In general, so you say, what's your total cost? Let's say your total costs are $25,000, and you want to make a 50% margin, so you're charging $50,000 an issue for something like that. So you just got to think of usually on a margin standpoint. So on print custom, you're looking at margins between 30 and 45%, depending on if you're sending it out to 200 or 300,000 people, your margins are going to be much lower because for the part, most companies don't even mark up print anymore. Or if you do, it's a very, very low markup, or you're going to price yourselves right out of the mix. From a other side or whatever, you're looking at the value, the cost total, and the value of that, and then marking that up on a just as you want on any kind of project. So if you're looking for a 50 to 60% margin on an e-newsletter, and you've got costs of $3,000, you might charge $7,500 per e-newsletter. It's just tough out there from a margin standpoint in general because you have a lot of people that are creating content for a very little amount of money. And I don't know how many of you are on the call that have seen the demand media model, but demand media, they basically get a lot of people that they're paying $15 to $20 a post or a video to create a lot of content for a very little amount of money, and they're starting to put packs together for their customers, and they're at a very reasonable level, and some of these products are not bad. So what you have to focus on is as long as you have your niche and focus, but I would say the easiest way to do it is just on a project markup standpoint. So just think print, lower level, 30 to 45%. Anything online, you're probably looking at 50% or so. If you're leveraging corporate assets, like in webcasts, or you're leveraging any ad space or whatever, you're probably in the 70 to 80% margin standpoint. So if you're doing a webinar and you're targeting your customers to attend that webinar on behalf, if you're targeting your readers on behalf of your customers, you're probably looking at north of 70% margin on something like that. So it may cost you, let's say, $3,000-$4,000 to do turnkey everything on the webcast, but you may charge $15,000 to actually do it.
Okay. All right. I got a couple more here. Should we worry, or should you worry about educating prospects to the point that they no longer need your services, say for a consulting type of business?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I get that one all the time. So let's make sure I get the question right. So if you educate them so much about becoming publishers, do you basically negate the fact that you are even necessary anymore?
I think that's how I understand it.
Yeah, pretty much it. That's what I heard too. So I think the idea is first I'll tell you a story. I talked to one of the leaders in the custom publishing industry 2 years ago, and we were talking about where things are going and how all marketers are publishers now and what's going to happen. And he says, you're going to see this happen. We're in if you look at the content marketing industry right now, it's a 9-inning ball game, and we're just getting out of the dugout for the first inning. So this is very, very young when you consider where marketers are at right now. Right now they're in a transition period where they've been doing marketing the same way for a long, long time, and now over the past couple of years, everything has changed about how they're doing marketing, and I'm sure their departments are changing. So they want to do a lot of things, but they don't have the skill sets for it. What do they need? They need expert editors. They need expert designers. They need people that understand publishing and how to measure that publishing. They need publishers, or they need to be publishers, and right now they can't staff up quick enough. They don't understand what's needed. So they're very young from a publishing standpoint, and they need to get to that level. So they need to outsource. So they need people like you on the call to do a lot of that outsourcing for them. So back to the story, he said the next 15 years is going to be a boon for that are in the marketing services industry. But at some point, the marketers become the publishers, and they actually have full-blown publishing departments. look at a company like an Oracle. And Oracle has had a full-blown publishing department for a long, long time, and it's probably one of the most advanced publishers that are out there. It's just that we don't think about it that way because we don't realize that they publish many, many magazines and newsletters and online everything. Probably would put all of us to shame about the amount of publishing that they do. So they already understand that model, and they've been building up a publishing department for a long, long time. But most of our customers aren't there yet. So they're going to go there regardless, and if you don't offer the services, somebody else will. That's where I think if we really focus on our niche and really focus on getting close to our customers by doing these marketing services, we're going to find ways to do business with them so that ultimately they'll say, well, shoot, my partner here is so fantastic. Why would I want to insource this? So people will end up insourcing because they feel that they can either, one, do it better or two, do it cheaper. So we've got to make sure that we're doing it better and doing it at a cost that makes sense for them so that they don't look to outsource at some point. So long story short, David, I guess our customers are going that direction. They're already creating these advanced publishing departments because they have to, and we have to decide as a company whether or not we want to help them or not.
Yeah, and we kind of have the same sort of thing, but our philosophy is a little bit better than everybody, and you do the more you do it, it's hard for somebody to justify the hassle of doing it themselves.
Exactly right. I mean, you say,
yeah,
hey, we live in this all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do. You guys,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is how I was used to sell it. So you guys sell products and services. That's
Mm-hmm.
what your goal is to do that.
Yeah.
Our goal is to create a compelling, relevant message for you. That's all we do. So
yeah.
You partner with us.
And we all do that. I mean, we buy cars. We don't build our car, and I mean, that's an extreme example, but there's of those in your daily life that I'm sure you don't realize. And that's the philosophy we've taken. Sure, there's going to be some people who, well, they don't need to do this. They do that, this, and this. They all do it themselves. Well, you know what? Maybe they're not my target. I mean, yes, I mean, that's what we talk with our salespeople, and eventually that you are going to come across some people that are so savvy that they can do it themselves, and they have everything in place. But the majority of people we're going to be helping don't. So
that's
yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah,
it's really going to be interesting to see. I mean, we're already seeing how. I mean, look at a company like P&G. I mean, they do some of the most amazing online publishing that I've seen with HomemadeSimple.com or BeingGirl.com. Now, a lot of that they do internally, and a lot of that they outsource too. So when you're talking about the amount of content and the complexity and the integration with their total marketing programs, they need a lot of help to get it done.
Yeah.
So, and I think that will be the case for a long, long time.
I think so too. Last question. Let's see. How much of the content needs to be original versus repurposing other content?
I think it completely depends on the goal. I think there's a whole industry out right now going on called content curation, which is basically publishers have been doing it for years, and it's called editorial. And you create the news, and you create stories from lots of other people's stories and research. So what we're saying is, do we create all of it original, or do we piece it all together as part of our business? And I think the answer is both, depending on the product or service. So if you're a microsite, I think you can definitely leverage curated content. I think you can do the same for things like blog posts and white papers and whatnot. But you also, at the end of the day, you have to have some form of original content in order to position that customer as a trusted expert. So I think that depends on the model. From a custom, any kind of tactic that you're looking at, custom magazine to e-newsletter to blog or whatever, you need to look at both and look at the role of both. Because I think all original content sometimes becomes cost prohibitive if you can get somebody that's a really good editor and a seeker and a finder that can put together a package that really is sort of you can be the filter for the industry. You see a lot of companies doing that with Twitter. They're not creating all original content with Twitter, but they're saying, no, we are going to be the experts in this industry, and we are going to let you know where you need to get this content. We don't create it. I mean, that's kind of what Twitter is the ultimate content curation tool, and I think you can leverage that kind of philosophy with any kind of tactic or strategy from content marketing.
All right. Well, I think that's it for now. If anyone has any last-second questions, please zip them to me in the next 5 seconds. If not, thank you again, Joe. We learned a lot from you, and we've personally implemented a lot, and hopefully everyone else is too. But I will be sending out the recording here at the end of the day or tomorrow morning, and obviously everyone's feel free to contact Joe directly for any one-on-one training, and I'm sure he'll be able to help help whomever out even greater in that realm. But Joe, thank you again,
Thanks,
and
David. Appreciate
we'll
it.
see you again in 4 weeks.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.